Greetings, GenderqueerChat viewers. This is Fridays with Christina. Can't pronounce my own name sometimes. And the topic this week is, what is your gender identity? If it has, how has your gender identity changed over the years? And do you have a firm grasp on what your gender identity is at this point in time? It's not exactly in the middle. I don't know if other people on the channel feel like they're, right in the middle as like a third gender or something or other. Right in the middle between male and female. I don't quite feel like that. As I pointed out, I believe last week, I identify as more female in some ways and more masculine in others. And I use the term female and masculine because I don't identify with feminine, but I don't really identify myself as male. I see myself as female to a certain extent I'm in a female body, and I still use female pronouns, and I still prefer my birth name. So, if I have to pick one or the other, I guess I sort of pick female. I don't know. And there's history there, too, because when I was a kid, I really did strongly identify as female, but I never really identified as feminine, or what society typically considers to be feminine. Which, as Matt brought up, brings up the question of, do we really even know how to define male and female and masculine and feminine? I feel, okay, so there's ways that I'm female. Like, I still keep my birth name, and I still keep female pronouns, and it's mostly for sake of comfort, sake of simplicity in everyday life. I'm not, like, really trying to pass as male, although it's kind of cool when people think that I'm a guy. It's neat, but I don't think I'd be comfortable with people seeing me as male 100% of the time, which, of course I'm genderqueer, so I'm somewhere in between the two, right? So, it's neat, it's kind of cool to be identified as male every now and then. Now, certainly, this doesn't necessarily apply to everybody else, but for me personally, I kind of feel a little bit, I don't want to say like I'm lying to people if people assume that I'm male, but it's kind of just a thing like, well, they don't realize that I'm born in this certain body. They think that I'm born in this body, so, they don't exactly, I don't know, I feel it's a little bit anxiety producing, because you think, I would, well, I can't assume, but I would think that may be one of the reasons why some trans guys get, like, anxiety going to the bathroom, right? Because if they find out, then, of course that's an issue with just discrimination against trans people in general, so. But yeah, I don't know, I feel a little bit weird about it. It's cool, don't get me wrong, it's cool for people to think that I'm a guy, but, I don't feel like it's 100% accurate for me. So, that being said, I do like to present myself as masculine, pretty much as I possibly can. I try to steer away from women's clothing, because it just gives me this shape of my body that I'm just not happy with. I'm not going out into the world to try to show off an hourglass figure, and, it's just not my thing. I am going out into the world to try to look, now, again, it's all about the perceptions in society, right? I'm trying to go out into the world and to look, strong and capable, and it's so stereotypically, it deals with the stereotypes of men, and masculinity versus femininity and all this. So I I'm in a point in my life where I'm trying to deconstruct those things and trying to figure out how much of it really is my own self and how much of it is pushed on by what society expects of men versus women. And why is it that I want to look more like the typical man? You know, I don't know. It's kind of like, you know, it's kind of this idea like, is it because of the patriarchy? Is it because, you know, men typically hold more power, and so I'm trying to emulate that for some reason. I don't know. I don't know. I'm trying to I'm trying to think, and I've thought about this before of how is it that I was influenced throughout my life to think this way? Was it, you know, ingrained? But then again, you think of things like, okay, I was, when I was, you know, and I've mentioned this in another video, and I've mentioned this on my personal channel, that when I was 4, I had my baptism, and for whatever reason, my dad put me in a dress. And I was very uncomfortable with it. Now, again, does clothing necessarily have to do with gender? The type of clothing that you want to wear? Well, not necessarily, but whatever. You know, for sake of argument, I mean, that could be used as a factor to support my androgynous genderqueer identity. So, yeah, I mean, it's like, and, you know, when people call me pretty, adults around, oh, you know, you're such a pretty girl or whatever in a dress, and I'm like, I'm not comfortable with this. I really wasn't. I mean, I didn't say that out loud because I was 4. Like, I didn't tell anybody outright that I'm super uncomfortable in a dress, but whatever. So, I don't know. I guess I think as I've stated, you know, in my last video, I try to focus on things that are a little bit more measurable. So, physical things, the physical realm, of course, is more measurable. So, I mean, clothing isn't absolute, unfortunately. Behaviors aren't absolute because we don't, you know, there's not nearly enough science done about, you know, the female versus the male brain. Whether there's differences between the two, who knows? As I stated, I was kind of uncomfortable with the female puberty. I, you know, accepted the fact that I was going to get a chest, but I didn't think it was going to get as big as it did, and I didn't realize that it was going to continue growing and growing and growing until I was like 15 or whatever the heck. I thought it would just take a couple of years and then it'd be done and it'd be great. And then I was like in denial about it I really was in denial about the size of my chest. It was like, I really was. That's an interesting thing. I find that I get more conscious about my chest, whether you want to call that gender dysphoria, I guess, sort of. Yeah, I guess. I get more conscious about my chest, self-conscious or whatever, about it when I'm binding. That's the interesting part, because it's like, when I'm just wearing a bra, I don't feel it. It's so, because I guess maybe because I've done it for so long, I don't know. I just don't notice it. And then, but of course if I look in a mirror, it's like, oh, that's a shape that I'm not so super happy with. But then I bind, and I don't know, I gotta get a new binder. It's like not working that great. I think I should go up a size, I think. Yeah, anyway. So I bind every now and then, just because I want to have my options as open as possible. So if one day I feel like I want to have a flat chest, I want to have that option open. And if one day I don't want to have a flat chest, that's why I don't want to totally get top surgery, because yeah, I don't think I'd be totally comfortable with that. But so I want to have my options open for as long as possible until I firmly make a decision. And I'm not one to be able to make firm decisions. I'm a bit of a procrastinator, so I think, yeah, I think it's a little bit difficult. Has my gender identity changed? Yes, because when I was little, like I said, I was like, yeah, okay, I have a female body, sure, I'm a girl, fine. And I identified with things like Sailor Moon, which is awesome, strong female role model, yes. And the Spice Girls, girl power, yes. And but then I identified with like the Power Rangers, and I never really. I grew up and I saw myself as a tomboy. Again, I was just living with my dad my whole life, so maybe again that may have had an influence. Like who knows? I don't know. So I'm constantly trying to, well, not constantly, but I'm trying to figure out basically what and maybe I'll never know what the causes were. I don't know. So maybe I don't need to find out my causes. Maybe I'm just me, and that's a really smart thing to say. It's like, that's an epiphany moment right there. So, I grew up, and then I was a tenor in my high school's choir, so I got a low voice. And then that kind of sparked hey, I actually, well, you know what, earlier than that too, in junior high, I was like, okay, so I'll repeat a bit from what was on my channel. Basically, in junior high, grade 8, more grade 9 probably, the girls, they had their own cliques and yada 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 and drama, and the boys in my class seemed more like they could all get along. Even the boys who were like less popular, they could still, there was a certain level of respect among all of them. So I kind of I liked that, I admired it, so I kind of wanted, maybe, whether that's a gender thing, I don't know. So I kind of wanted to be one of the guys to a certain extent. But I'm not popular, and they still, I'm still physically female, so it didn't quite work. And I wasn't really ever socially that great. Yeah, so then high school I was a tenor, and then that spurned questioning my gender identity, because I met like a few trans people after I came out as bisexual in grade 10. So I met a few trans people, I think at Gay Pride in my city the following spring. So that was kind of an introduction to it, and I was so oblivious to it. But, being a tenor in my choir with this low voice and being one of the guys, it was cool. I really enjoyed it. And it was interesting. My choir teacher told me that I could be a tenor or an alto, alto being the lower female voice, as opposed to soprano. And I was like, no, I want to be a tenor. Which totally fits my vocal range anyways. It fits more than alto. But point being, I was really happy to be one of the guys. It was really cool. It was really affirming. Like, I liked being in that position. And maybe, again, whether it was entirely a gender identity thing, I don't know. Maybe it was just like, oh, I'm this special female tenor, and I'm so interesting and different. So maybe, maybe that was part of it. What else can I say? What was the other question? Do I have a firm grasp on my gender? No. No. It's always changing. I have a pretty firm grasp on who I am, basically, but the language is just, it's impossible. I can't describe it, there's various words that I can say that I identify with, gender or otherwise. So, yeah. So I'm done for now. Bye. See you next week.